Hello everybody, I hope you can see me, I hope you can hear me. Thanks for being here today. My name is Alex and I work at Chester Zoo. I work in their education department. So my job is to talk to as many people as possible about how amazing the natural world is and talk to them all about all the amazing creatures that are in it. And most importantly, how they can help those animals. Now, if you've never heard of Chester Zoo before, you probably have, but you might know a little bit about us. But we don't just work here in the UK at our zoo, we work around the world. So we've got around 60 projects in about 21 countries. But like I said, we are just one zoo, so we can't work in all these places by ourselves. We have to work with other companies and with our partners. And it is really, really important that we have people supporting us. That allows us to do all these amazing things. And that's why it's great that we have Saputo supporting us and allowing us to go out to different parts of the world, particularly rainforests, and help protect those animals and support the people out there. Now, I'm going to be talking to you guys all about the wonders of the rainforest. But first of all, I want to explain where exactly those are. Now, I will get into a little bit more about the work that Saputo is helping us do, but I'll do that towards the end because you need to know all about the amazing creatures that are in these rainforests before you realize how important it is to support them. So hopefully you can all see a map there. And you'll see that there are two green sections. There's the light green, which shows most of the world, and then there are those dark green sections. And those are the bits that are showing the rainforest. And if you have a look carefully, you'll see that those rainforest sections are kind of on the same level. They're all big and straight going around the world. And a lot of you might already know, but that is what we call the equator. So you have a look at the globe I've got here. There is a line running all the way around. Now, this happens to be the hottest part of the world, generally because it's closest to the sun. And that is where all the tropical rainforests are. And it's also where we get the most type of animals, or the most amount of animals. And we call that biodiversity. So if I was to split that into two, you got bio, which means life, and diversity, which means different types of life. And you get the most amount of life in the rainforest sections. Now, I'm going to talk through the three different sections of rainforest there. So if you have a look over to the South American bit, you've got the Amazon rainforest, the biggest rainforest in the world. Then in Africa, you've got the Congo rainforest. And then finally, you've got all the rainforests in Southeast Asia. And those are the rainforests that Saputo is really helping us to support. Now, we shouldn't have a favourite rainforest, but I think most people at the zoo, we would really say the Southeast Asian rainforests are our favourites. Partly because a lot of the species that we have here at the zoo, originally they would have come from Southeast Asia, particularly places like Indonesia and Malaysia as well. But before I jump in to all of that, I'm just going to explain that I'm going to be showing you a few props throughout the lesson. I'm going to be asking you what they are, but if you think you know what they are, drop it into the chat box on the side and I'll try and get to them. And as well as if you have any questions, feel free to drop those and I'll try and come back to those at the end. But first we'll do a little test. We'll see how good you are at knowing what things are. So I'm going to show you an item, this, and I'd like you to tell me what it is and what animal it's from. If you think you know, drop it into the chat and I will tell you what it is at the end of the lesson. I won't tell you what it is right now though, but it's pretty cool. Let's have a closer look. I'll give you one clue. It's from an animal that's really good at climbing. It's also pretty good at swimming. And it's a brilliant predator. Now, this isn't a real one because you can see through it. And I wouldn't want to take this off the actual animal if it's alive, because that would be very dangerous. So there's a few clues there. We'll have a look through those. Now, let's jump in and check out what a rainforest looks like. Wow, that's quite a nice, beautiful looking rainforest. It's really, really open. It's quite airy. Most of the time, rainforests are very dark and enclosed places, but that's how the animals like it. Being dark means that the animals that are a little bit smaller have some place to hide, and the bigger animals that are trying to hunt them, well, they have camouflage. They can hide in the shade. Now, there's going to be lots of different animals hanging out all through the rainforest, but we normally break them into different sections, and we call those the layers of the rainforest. So right down the bottom, that's the forest floor. And if I was on the forest floor in South America, in the Amazon rainforest, well, first of all, I'd have to be very careful because it's quite wet there. The biggest river in the world is there. Not the longest, that's the Nile in Africa, but it is the biggest river. Looks something like that. And if you're thinking, oh, that looks quite nice, what could be swimming in there, do you think? Well, quite a few things, but the thing that I'd be most concerned about is I'd want to look out for the caiman. Now, they're part of the crocodilian family, so as well as crocodiles and alligators and gharials, they're considered a little bit smaller than crocs, but saying that, they can still get taller than I am, and they've got an incredibly powerful bite force, and I would not want to be in the water when they're swimming around. And that means that all the other animals have to be careful as well. If they're walking along the forest floor, they might want to jump into the river to escape predators. For example, let's have a look at... This is the fun of technology where I have to find all my pictures. And... bear with me 2 secs. There we go. So that's a cute animal there, and you might think, oh, that doesn't look like an animal that would be living in the river, but it actually is. These guys are brilliant swimmers. Now, you might well be shouting at your screen saying, I know what that is, it's a guinea pig. Well, you're kind of right, it's a big guinea pig, a really big fat guinea pig. Those are called capybaras. They are the largest rodent in the world. And with me here, I have a capybara skull. Now you can see, if anyone's got gerbils or rats at home, they have quite similar teeth. And they're incredible teeth because they're actually self-sharpening. So as they open and close, they scrape against each other, and it means that these teeth always have a sharp point or sharp edge. And that's really good for munching through vegetation. So if this animal is eating things like plants, that makes it a herbivore. Now, it's got those big teeth to take smaller branches and vegetation and cut it up, but at the back of its mouth, it has very, very flat teeth. And those are brilliant for grinding up all of those plants. Now, if you were to run your tongue down the back of your mouth, like I'm doing right now, you'd feel that you have quite flat teeth at the back. They're slightly bumpy, but they're very, very flat. And those are your fruit and vegetable eating teeth. They're to be grinding up all those apples and bananas and salads you might like to eat. They're also pretty important for chips. So if you like chips, you need those molars. Animals without the molars probably couldn't eat chips, which is a sad thing. But those capybaras are going to be spending most of the time on the shore, but they can jump into the water if they were to see a predator. But they've still got to be careful of those caiman. Caiman have incredible skulls as well, but they are very, very different. For example, if you looked inside their mouth, this is quite a small one, you'd see that they don't have flat teeth at the back. They have sort of pointy, cone-like teeth. And these teeth are brilliant at snapping down on slippery prey like fish. Now, a crocodile or a caiman, they actually have the strongest bite force of any animal. They're really, really, really powerful. And the bigger they get, the more powerful the bite. So if you go to places in Southeast Asia, or you go to places like Australia, they have the saltwater crocodile, and they can get up to something like 18 foot long. So that's like 3 and a bit times the height of me, and they have the strongest bite force in the world. Now, these animals both have to be careful of another animal, because the caiman and the capybara can be hunted. And you might think it's a bit crazy, but I'm going to get one of my colleagues to talk you through how brilliant these animals are.
So these awesome animals are jaguars, and they are top predators in the rainforest. They are perfectly adapted to ambush hunt their prey. So they've got lovely camouflage, spotty coats, you also get jet black coats that help them to really blend in with their surroundings with the rainforest. They've got really sharp teeth which are perfect for slicing up their food. They've got exceptionally good sense of smell, and eyesight, which helps them to keep track of their prey and hunt them. Another rainforest adaptation is their ability to swim. They have webbing between their paws, and they're actually fantastic swimmers. This allows them to catch a whole range of prey that likes to spend time around the water.
Brilliant. So that was Steph talking about the jaguars. So the jaguars, they are perfectly adapted to their forest habitat, partly because they're good at swimming, so they don't mind all that water, but it's also to do with their fur. So this is actually a leopard fur. So you can tell the difference between a jaguar and a leopard because a jaguar normally has some extra spots within their rosetta spots. But it does the same job. The dark colours and the light colours are going to be blending in with the light that's coming through the forest. So if I go back to the picture of my lovely airy forest, you'll see as that light shines through the canopy, which is all those leaves right at the top of the rainforest, it's going to be creating some dark patches, it's going to be creating some light patches, and that is where the jaguar hides. Now you might be thinking, well, why have they gone for yellow? That's a bit of a strange colour. But a lot of the things that the jaguar like to eat, they can't see in colour. They can only see in black and white. And that's where the jaguar really, really excels. So blending in, it just looks like white patches and dark patches, and to all the other animals, that's all they can see on the forest floor as well, light patches and dark patches. Now, of course, you do get some jaguars which are completely black, or they're called melanistic. So here at the zoo, we have two jaguars. They are a breeding pair, or we're trying to. We've got a lovely boy called Napo, who you saw in the video, and we've got Goshi as well, who I think made an appearance, and she is the completely black one. Now, we also call those black panthers, but that's not a separate species. A black panther is just a black big cat. So you can get black leopards, and that is also a black panther, and you can get black jaguars, which is also a black panther. Now, have a look at our lovely jaguar skull. Again, very different teeth to the capybara. They haven't got those flat teeth at the back, they have incredibly pointy ones. And in fact, these are even sharper than the caimans. They've got big canine teeth here, but they don't really use those for eating. So we use our little canine teeth there for cutting through meat, whereas they use theirs for hunting. So that's how they would kill their prey before eating them. And at the back, these teeth are not molars, they are called carnassial teeth. And these teeth are brilliant at slicing chunks of meat off. So when you see a big cat eat, they normally put the food into the side of their mouth and chew to get a piece off, and then they'll swallow that. They're really, really different to us. And one thing you can do to test if you are a herbivore or a carnivore, like the jaguars, is you can check out your jaw and how it moves. So a capybara and other animals that can eat plants, they can chew. They can move their jaw, not just up and down, like I'm doing now when I'm talking, they can move it side to side. So have a go at home. You can move your jaw side to side, which means you can eat all those fruits and veg. If I was to try and do it with the jaguar though, nope, no movement at all. They are animals. They just snip, 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 snip. They're basically like a giant pair of scissors. Now, I've spoken about quite a few animals that all come from the Amazon rainforest. Let's have a look at a different forest. Let's go over to Africa into the Congo rainforest has some incredible animals there as well. They've got things like the chimpanzees, they have the gorillas, they have okapi. But there is a smaller forest that you might see down next to Africa, and that's called the Madagascan rainforest. And of all the islands in the world, I think Madagascar's got to be in the top 5 for how special it is. It broke away from the rest of Africa many, many, many thousands of years ago. So its animals are very unique. We actually call them endemic, which means that those animals aren't found anywhere else in the world. They're just found in Madagascar. And they have some brilliant animals there, animals that won't just be living on the forest floor, but they might be living in the next layer up, which we call the understory. Or I know a lot of people now call it the shrub layer or the bush layer, but they're living just off the forest floor. Now have a look at this. This is a Madagascan blue stick insect. Now, not many people, well, sadly, not many people are that interested in insects, arthropods, and things like that. But I think they're absolutely fascinating. I think they are some of the best creatures on our planet, just because of how beautiful and diverse they are. And they also have a really important role in the ecosystem. Without insects, nothing would be alive on this planet. Have a think about that for a second. There's so many different types, and they all have different roles. They could be pollinating our flowers and our fruits and our vegetables and all the other plants, or they could be breaking down all the dead things, and they could be recycling those nutrients, or they just provide food for other animals as well. But they're all brilliant in their own right. So that is a lovely Madagascan stick insect. There's also going to be a few other things that are going to be living up around the understory layer. Things like, the chameleon. That is a Parsons chameleon. In fact, it's a very special chameleon here at the zoo. He's called Mr. Parsons. We weren't very original with the name. And he is featuring nearly all the time on Secret Life of the Zoo, which is our TV show on Channel 4. And these guys are incredibly long-lived. In fact, we're not entirely sure exactly how long they live for, just because not many people have them in zoos, and we haven't really documented that well. But we know that they live a lot longer than other chameleon species. Now, of course, Madagascar isn't just known for its insects and its chameleons. It's most famously known for these. Those are lemurs. In fact, that is a baby ring-tailed lemur. Or you might all be screaming at your screen and saying, "Oh, that's King Julian from Madagascar." That's right, that movie is based on real life. It's based on a real island called Madagascar, and all the little animals there, those are the lemurs. And King Julian is the king, and he's a ring-tailed lemur. Even though, if we're being fair, it should be Queen Julia, because the girls are in charge in ring-tailed lemur society. Now, that's one of our babies from last year, and they grow up very, very quick. Unfortunately, you can't see the tail in there. Normally, they have a black and white stripy tail that curls up around them, and they will use that to show the other lemurs where they all are. They use it as a kind of flag as they're walking through the rainforest, and they also use it for something called stink fighting, where they'll be rubbing their glands, which are on their wrist and under their arms, all over their tail, making it nice and smelly, and then they waft their tails at each other, and they do that because they want to work out who's the smelliest and who's the strongest. So the strongest smelling lemur normally wins all the fights, gets all the food, might get all the girlfriends as well, and gets the best place to sleep. And they do that because they just don't want to fight with their claws or their teeth, because they might both end up getting hurt. So the smelliest lemur wins. Now, I don't recommend trying that at home. Make sure you keep washing. It doesn't work for humans. Everyone will just avoid you. You won't win any prizes. Now, there is another type of lemur. These are one of my favourite type of lemur, and we have them here at the zoo, but I don't get to see them that often. It's called an eye. And I know you're thinking they might look very, very different, but this is a nocturnal lemur, and they are absolutely incredible animals. They don't have a long stripy tail, they have a big bushy tail. It literally looks like a feather duster, but a big, stiff, spiky one. And these guys will be going through the forest, and they'll be tapping on the wood with their really long middle fingers. It's a really crazy finger. It's a lot thinner than all the others, and they tap on the wood, and they use their incredible hearing to listen for the hollow sections. And when they find one, they will use their chisel-like teeth to make a hole, put their other really long finger inside to the wood, and pick out all the grubs and all the little insects in there. But these animals are, well, they're becoming more and more endangered. In fact, all of Madagascar's animals are becoming endangered because they are losing their rainforest. Now, we're starting to get into the meat of the conversation, where I will be talking about the real problem that all these animals are facing in the rainforest. It's something called deforestation. But before I get into that, I want to talk about our last rainforest. I want to talk about the ones over in Southeast Asia, particularly Indonesia and Malaysia as well. Now, at Chester Zoo, we do work really, really closely in a few places. We do work in a place called Sabah, and we have been working there for quite a few years now. We actually sent some of our staff over to Kinabatangan reserve, which is what the place is called, to try and plant some trees and work with the locals. And that is where Saputo have been helping us, because they were able to support us with that and allow us to go over there. And it is really, really important, because then we get to work with animals like this, which is called a gibbon, not a monkey. I know you might be thinking monkey because they don't look like the apes. They don't look like the chimpanzees or the gorillas. They look a bit smaller and they got longer arms. Now, if you need a way to tell the difference between an ape and a monkey, normally you can just look at the tail. If it's got a tail, it's going to be a monkey, unless it's a lemur. A lemur is not a monkey. And if it hasn't got a tail, it's normally going to be an ape. So we classify gibbons as lesser apes, which I think sounds a little bit mean. I think they are just as important in their own right as the other apes, but they're not in the same sort of as close family as the bigger apes are. Now, there are quite a few other animals over in Indonesia. This has got to be one of the rarest. Now, you might be thinking, is that a parrot? It's something brightly coloured. Well, think of the magpies that we get in this country. This is a Javan green magpie. They're in the same family. They're in the corvid family, which is different to the COVID family. No one wants to be in that family. But these guys are incredibly clever animals, and they make some amazing sounds. They can even mimic the sounds of other birds. But sadly, in many parts of Indonesia, they are going silent. The whole forests are running out of birds, partly because people are taking them from the wild and using them in singing contests, or they just want to keep them as pets in their home, but also because they are running out of places to live. All the trees are being chopped down and the animals are starting to disappear. They need those trees. They need a place to live. They also provide food for lots of other animals. So the birds will be flying around looking for all the insects, but the animals on the ground, like the deer, and the buffalo, they're going to be food for an animal like this. That is the largest lizard in the world, the Komodo dragon. They are absolutely brilliant. A little bit different from those crocodile, from the caiman that we saw earlier. They have a different type of skull. Ooh. Now, you might see that it's very delicate. It's quite light. And for such a big animal that's hunting things like deer and buffalo, you'd think, oh, you need a bigger, powerful skull. But these guys have different types of teeth. Whereas the crocodile had those really pointy cone-like teeth and the really powerful muscles on its head to slam shut, and they'll try and do as much damage in one bite. These guys, they just want to cut as deep as possible. So when they bite into an animal, those teeth slice like a knife rather than stab. And Komodo dragons have a venom. Now, it's not a venom like a snake venom. It won't make you poorly by itself, but Komodo dragons never brush their teeth. They're really, really dirty in their mouth. They've got lots of horrible bacteria. You wouldn't want to sniff their breath. It's disgusting. But with their venom, it actually makes the blood stop clotting. So it goes around the body, and any germs that are in the Komodo dragon's mouth, that goes around the body as well. And that's what kills the animal. So they can have a really light skull and still do a lot of damage. But Komodo dragons are absolutely brilliant animals. We have quite a few here at the zoo. In fact, we are the zoo that breeds Komodo dragons all around Europe. So the person who does that, he will be talking to lots of different zoos, and he'll be saying, oh, right, I would like to take one Komodo dragon from one zoo, and I'd like to mix it with a different Komodo dragon so that we can have new babies and we can keep the genetics good. And that's how zoos work. You can't just have animals willy-nilly when you want them. You got to talk to these people who are in charge of breeding them, and that's how we work with them. So to be able to go out and work with the wild populations is really important as well. So again, thank you, Saputo, for helping us do that. Now, some of the other animals that we are breeding, because it's so important to keep breeding them, is the tigers. Now, we have Sumatran tigers here at the zoo, so they're from Southeast Asia as well. And the problem with island species is that if anything happens to them, so if there is a disease, or if people hunt them too much, or if they lose all their habitat, well, they're on an island. they can't go and swim in the sea and try and get to another island. It's too far away. So they end up going extinct. In fact, of the 9 subspecies of tiger that we used to have just a couple of hundred years ago, 3 have already gone extinct. And that's really, really sad. But here at the zoo, we are part of an international breeding program. So this is a picture of mum tiger Kirana and her daughter Kasana when she was little. Now, Kasana is much bigger now because Kasana is 6 years old. So she is a full-grown tiger. She's much bigger, and she actually has her own space now because she wouldn't want to share her food with her mum. But she actually had 2 brothers, and those brothers have gone off to a different zoo, or 2 different zoos in Europe, and they've had their own babies. So this is how we work all together as a big zoo. And if the worst came to the worst and these tigers went extinct in the wild, well, we'd still have them in captivity and there'd still be a chance to release them back into the wild. Now, another animal that we've had to work closely with, and probably one of my favourites, and I say it's one of my favourites, but I think anyone who comes to the zoo, we all love them, is the elephants. So the elephants, let's see if I can find a photo. The elephants, they live in their big herd. They live as a family. There. They live as a family and they hang out together and they play together. Now, a herd of elephants is controlled by the matriarch. And our matriarch at the moment is Sundara. And you can actually see this small elephant at the front, Reva. That is her youngest, that's her daughter, and she's very small there. She turned 1 year old in February, and she's just got to that age where she likes to play with her older cousins and her older sister, who is Anjan and Indali behind her. Now, it's really, really important that we support all these elephants. In fact, only last month, all elephants are now classified as critically endangered, which is really sad. It means that their population is getting worse and worse. It's getting more unstable. So there are Asian elephants in India, all the way through Southeast Asia, particularly in places like Borneo, where you can get the Bornean pygmy elephants. And then you've got 2 other types of species of elephant in Africa, which is the savanna elephant and the forest elephant. But they're all critically endangered now, which is really, really sad. Now, I want to talk about one species that Saputo have been really helping us with. Because like I said, they've been helping us put trees up. And having a big forest, a big healthy forest, is important for all animals. But for some animals, well, they never come down to the ground. Trees are their world, their life. So if they don't have a tree, they physically can't exist. And I'm just going to get a lovely little video up from one of my colleagues and see if I can play that for you now. Well, there's a picture of it at least. So that is a hornbill. Hornbills are these really, really big, amazing birds. And they're going to be flying around and they're going to be building their nests in tree boxes. Now, they would normally go into old dead trees and build their nests there. But unfortunately, as we keep chopping it all down, they're all disappearing. I've just found the video, so I'm going to let someone else explain it, and then I'm going to show you one of their skulls.
High up in the trees, we find animals like the hornbill. Now, hornbills, when they're having chicks, will have a nest that's inside the tree. So they use the hollow of a tree, and that's where they will seal up the tree. So they'll seal it up with mud and with bark, and the female is left just inside the tree with her chicks as they hatch out the eggs. Now, she leaves a tiny hole that she can see out of, and this is where she'll also get food. But she's stuck inside the tree, so she needs to get food somehow, and that's where the male comes in handy. So the male will hear her call. She can make a really loud noise because she's got this strange bit on top of her beak. It's called a casque. and it's hollow. So when she makes that noise using her throat, then the noise bounces off this hollow cask and it makes it really, really loud. And the male will hear this noise and he'll bring her some food. And he uses his very long, thin beak to pass the food through the hole to the female who's on the inside. And then she can feed the chick. One of the problems for hornbills is that the trees in the rainforest are disappearing. And they need the trees because the trees are where they have their nests. So as the trees disappear, hornbills lose their nesting sites.
Brilliant. That was great to hear from Ed there. So he was talking all about those wonderful hornbills. In Kinibatanga, where we are doing our work and where Saputo's been supporting us, there are actually 8 different types of hornbill. Some of them are what we call near threatened, so they are starting to become endangered. Some are vulnerable, such as the rhinoceros hornbills that we have here at the zoo, which we've been trying to breed, and some sadly are critically endangered. So just like those elephants, they are on the edge of going extinct. So they might disappear forever, just like the dinosaurs, and we do not want that to happen. So by putting nest boxes up into the forest, it means we can keep these animals going, we can keep them alive. Now, if you didn't join us at the beginning or you missed anything, I just want you to say that as I've been showing these skulls, I did ask a question at the beginning. I wanted you to guess what this is. And the only clue I'm giving is that it is quite a dangerous animal. It's not an animal that you would want to go and take it from. This is actually a fake. It's not a real one. I wouldn't want to go anywhere near the live animal and try and take that from them. But if you think you know what it is, drop your answers into the chat box on YouTube. It's all there. And remember, I can also read some of your questions. So if you do have any for me, could be about the rainforest or the work that we're doing or the work that Saputo is helping us to do, drop it into the chat box and I'll try and answer those at the end of the lesson, which isn't very long off now. But before I get into the final bit, I want to just talk about some of the animals that have been really supported by these reforesting projects. Not just the hornbills, but some of the most charismatic animals at the zoo. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, I'm just going to show you the video first.
Orangutans live in the rainforests of Borneo and Sumatra. They are arboreal. When we say arboreal, we mean they live in the tops of the trees. They're expert climbers. They've got really big hands and feet that are really good for gripping onto the branches as they climb up high. Something nice about orangutans is that the baby will spend a long time with its mother, around about 8 years or so, before the mother and the baby go their separate ways to live in different territories. Orangutans are omnivores, just like we are, and so what they're able to do is find the fruit and the vegetables in the area that they live in, but they will also find some meat, so maybe some bugs or other animals that are up in the trees near them. They're very similar to humans, so in terms of how related they are to us, we've got humans, then chimpanzees, then gorillas, and then the orangutans are the next closest related to us. Unfortunately, for the orangutans, they are becoming harder to find on the islands of Borneo and Sumatra, because the rainforest is disappearing.
Right, so like Ed was saying there, those orangutans, they are closely related to us. Not as closely related as, say, the chimpanzees or the gorillas, or there is another species as well, something called a bonobo, which is very, very closely related to us. But if I show you this is an orangutan skull. And you can see that they're going to have quite a lot of similarities to a human skull, but just a lot more, well, scaled up, I'd say. So our teeth generally aren't that big. We do have these pointy canines on the side. I can see mine there. But mine aren't that big. But they have incisors and they have flat molars at the back. So these are animals that are going to be eating a bit of meat, mainly things like insects, maybe a few eggs, but they're mainly going to be eating plants and fruit. They absolutely love that. And our orangutans here at the zoo, they get a big variety of fruit and veg. They get that every single day, and they also get a bit of protein as well. Now, those orangutans are sadly becoming extinct because we keep chopping down the forest. And this is the bit I wanted to get into. It's not the happiest bit of the talk, but it's probably the most important bit, because I wanted to tell you about how you can help. Saputo is really helping us already because they're not just supporting us when we go into the forest, but they're doing something else with their products, which is probably, if I think about it, even more important. They are using something in their products called palm oil, but they are getting it from good sources. Now, when I say good sources, I mean that when we grow plants, we normally have to make more room for these farms, or these plantations as they're called. And sadly, what that generally means is we have to chop down forests. So it could be here in this country, we might go and chop down a load of our forests, which isn't good. But in the rainforest, it starts to look a little bit like that. Now, can you imagine an orangutan swinging through the trees, looking for more food, looking for a good tree to sleep in, to find some shelter? Orangutans even build nests at night. They build a little bed before they go to sleep. So they might be looking to have a rest for the evening. And suddenly they come across this. All their trees are gone. They don't want to go down onto the ground because they don't know what's down there. There might be people that want to hurt them. There might be other animals that want to hurt them, like things like snakes. So the orangutans go, oh, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in my tree. And what people sometimes grow instead are these. Now, they probably just look like palm trees, but there are lots of different types of palm tree, and this one is called an oil palm tree. Actually, it's called an African oil palm tree because these trees originally were grown in Africa, but they were taken from there over to Southeast Asia, and people started growing them there. Now, this oil, as though it sounds bad because it sounds like we're growing it, we're taking away all the forest from all the other animals, but it's actually a brilliant source of oil. It produces more oil than any other type of fruit. Now, when I say oil, think about an apple. When you squeeze it, you get apple juice. When you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. If you squeeze a banana, well, you probably just get a messy hand. But if you squeeze these, you get oil out of it. So when that oil comes out of it, we can put it in all kinds of products. In fact, when you go to a supermarket, over half the things that you buy will have palm oil in. If you don't believe me, have a think about any of these. If you buy cake, that's got palm oil in, ice cream, chocolate, and even things that we don't eat, things like soap and lipstick. And probably one of the most important ones for Saputo is going to be their spreads. They use palm oil in their spreads as well. And just to give you a little bit more of an idea, because that's only a couple of things I've shown you there, those are a few other examples of what palm oil is in. I'll give you a few moments just to have a look at that. Try and get your head around how many things palm oil are in. And you might be thinking, well, Alex, if palm oil is in so many things, but we're chopping down rainforests to grow it, why don't we just stop growing it? Why do we need to have it in these products in the first place? Well, for a few reasons. One, it makes them last longer. Putting the oil in can make things last a lot longer. Think about bread. Long time ago, if you were buying bread, normally it would go dry after a day or so, whereas sometimes we can buy sliced bread now and it lasts 3-4 days, maybe even longer, and that's because of the oils in it. It is a preservative. It also binds things together, so it's what makes shampoo slippery, or what makes things like spreads creamy. It's what makes them spreadable. Think about things like peanut butter. You used to have to mix peanut butter together because it would separate into different components, whereas now, because of the palm oil that we use in it, it stays all nice and close together. So palm oil is a really, really important additive to these products, and we need to have them. And we could use a different type of oil. We grow oil in this country. We grow things called rapeseed oil. But palm oil needs a really small bit of land and it produces a lot of oil. Whereas all the other oils, you need more land to grow it and you get less oil. So what's going to be the best thing? I think it's going to be using the palm oil, because otherwise we're going to be taking the problems that are happening in Southeast Asia and we're going to be moving them to other places. If we were to go and switch to something like soy oil, soy is normally produced in the Amazon rainforest, but you need loads more land to get the same amount of oil as you do from palm. So there's no point taking this problem, moving it to the Amazon and making it a lot worse. What we can do though is look at how to make sustainable palm oil. That's the most important thing. Now, sustainable palm oil, well, that's a tricky thing to know what that is. But basically, if a farmer is going into the forest, he can't cut down any of the trees. He has to go and find bits of forest that have already been destroyed over the last couple of decades, and he has to plant on that. He also can't burn any of the forest down to make room. He would have to pay all the workers a fair wage. He can't use children to grow it, because that is actually something that is used quite a lot as well. People use kids to go and farm palm oil. And this is what we call sustainable palm oil. This is the kind of palm oil that Saputo uses in all their products. It is sustainable. And if everyone goes to supermarkets and only buys sustainable palm oil, well, then that is going to be brilliant for all the animals in the rainforest. It means that no more forest will be chopped down or burnt down. And this is the logo you want to be looking for. It is the RSPO round table of sustainable palm oil, and that is the logo to look for. Now, if the products don't have the label on, that's fine. You can still just have a look at the ingredients on the back, and it should always say sustainable palm or certified palm, and that's what Saputo products have. They have sustainable palm on their information at the back. But if we don't label it with either the word sustainable or with the logo, then people won't know what to buy, and people won't be able to make informed decisions to help these animals. So it's really, really good that Saputo are doing this, and we are actually starting to get more and more companies signing up. However, we've got a long way to go still. Of all the palm oil that's produced in the world, and there are millions and millions of tons of it a year, only 19 to 21% of it is sustainable at the moment. But if we keep supporting the companies that are doing the best thing for the animals, then more people will sign up, and we eventually can get all palm oil to be sustainable. In fact, other countries are starting to take it on now, not just in Southeast Asia, but also over in the Americas. And I know Saputo are helping over there as well. Now, I did say I was going to take a few questions at the beginning. First of all, I don't know if anyone guessed what this was. If you guessed this is a claw, you're absolutely right. And this happens to be the claw of the largest type of tiger in the world, the Amur tiger, also known as the Siberian tiger. So they're the ones that live in the snow right up in the north of Russia and in northern China. Much bigger than our Sumatran tigers, which are actually the smallest tigers. Even though if you saw them, you'd still think they're absolutely massive. And I do have a few questions coming in. I'll be able to answer a couple of those before I have to go. So the first question is, what is my favourite animal? Well, I'm probably the worst person to ask for that, because my favourite animal changes every single day. The more I learn about a new animal, the more that becomes my favourite. I think as a kid, my favourite animals were always things like dolphins and whales, which are known as cetaceans, particularly the largest dolphin in the world, which is the killer whale. I know that sounds strange because you'd think a killer whale is a whale. It's not. It's the world's biggest dolphin. I've also got a question of how many Sumatran tigers are left. Well, that's really sad. At the moment, we're thinking around between 400 to 500. That's it. But it's really hard to know, because in the island, a lot of it is really thickly densely covered in forest, and we can't get to see these animals all the time. We have to put up camera traps a lot of the time to see what animals are passing, and some of the estimates are as low as 200, but we think we're trying to be optimistic, and we think it's around 400 to 500. Someone said hi from the Philippines. Hi. Nice to see you. And someone Someone was also asking about us doing anything to help the people out there as well. So absolutely, we're not just planting trees. We are working with local communities. It's not that we're going in and we're just sorting all these amazing things out. We actually have a lot of partner projects out there who are already based in Indonesia. So we work with someone called the Hutan Project, and working with these guys in Kinabatangan, we can work with local people. We can educate them about better farming practices, and we can also work with them to protect orangutans. And by working with local people who already have a lot of knowledge on the subject, much more than we could ever have, we can learn more about how to look after animals here at the zoo, but we can also lend a few of our skills there. So we're learning about how people actually care for them in the wild. So that only happens when we work with people from Indonesia and people from Malaysia as well. So before I go, because I've got to go now, guys, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for listening to me. I wanted to say one more big final thank you so much to Saputo. We can't keep doing these projects without your support. And anyone who's listening, next time you're in the supermarket and you're buying a product, have a look for that RSPO logo, check the ingredients, see if it says sustainable palm oil. If it does, brilliant. If you need a bit more help, on our website, we have the Sustainable Palm Oil shopping list. Just type in Google, Chester Zoo, Sustainable Palm Oil. The first thing that comes up is the shopping list, and you can have a look through that, and you can see all the brands that are using sustainable palm oil. We're also looking forward to reopening. We've only got a couple of days more to go, and then we're going to be back open, and we'd like to see as many people as possible coming to the zoo. Just remember, we've had new baby animals born. We've had some new development going on while being closed. So the zoo is looking, I think, better than ever. We've got lots of new exciting things coming up through the summer. So if you can get to the zoo, please come and see us and support us. Come say hi as well. There's going to be loads of rangers around, and we always like to hear your feedback. But thank you very much, guys, and I hope you have a brilliant rest of the day.